Hey there, welcome back to Authentic Agent Resource Podcast. This is Brandon DeVere. Thank you, as always, for tuning in and sharing your time with me. I do appreciate that. Today, very excited. Actually having my first local Las Vegas guest on the show, which you may think is counterintuitive, but he's got some great things to share, and I want him to get out there and have the opportunity to share those things. So, Matthew Mullin, how are you today?
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Brandon.
Yeah, absolutely. I see the Mullin group back there. That's incredible. So, hey, just want to, if you can just kind of give us a quick little backstory, kind of where you grew up. I mean, like most people that I've met here in Las Vegas, myself included, we were not born and raised here. We kind of come from other backgrounds. And so you have a similar type story in that way. But if you can just give us a little idea about you, your family, how you got to this point in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I was actually born and raised out here, and grew up started wrestling at 5 years old and getting into competitive wrestling. So my whole dad's side of the family was pretty competitive wrestlers and football players, and I learned early on what discipline in a sport looks like, and then I shifted to tennis about 10 years old, and I'm grateful for the shift because the shift to playing competitive tennis actually exposed me to a lot of other personalities, a lot of different backgrounds. And I actually attribute that shift to what I was exposed to because if it weren't for playing tennis, I would never have met an alum from Princeton University that was local here in Las Vegas that I got to know through, as a 13, 14, 15-year-old tennis player. I got a chance to regularly play tennis, with successful adults and professionals, and have conversations that I probably would never had if I wasn't in that sport. And so I met an alum who took an interest and asked me some questions and, gave me a chance and said, "Oh, what are you thinking about doing for college?" I had pretty good grades in school and I was a pretty good tennis player. I kind of had this dream. I wanted to play for Stanford because that was like the big dream tennis program on the West Coast. And he said, "What are you thinking about for college?" I said, "Oh, I don't know. Wherever I get a tennis scholarship, my family can't afford to send me to college." And he said, "Well, what do you think about Princeton?" And I said, "What's Princeton?" and he's like, "Oh, well, let me show you." But he gave me a chance and was a guide. Nick was very instrumental in that change and trajectory in my life, and I feel like I got really, really lucky. It happened to be the geographic diversity pick from the West at the time. And anyway, went back east, got a degree in economics from Princeton, and kind of that changed my whole perspective on the world and who I was surrounded with. Actually, in the first couple of weeks on campus, I was scared. I was wondering, I remember this thought, the people I was sitting in the room with, I remember having the thought, how long until they figure me out and send me home?
So imposter syndrome a little bit.
Oh my gosh, it was like a whole. I felt totally out of place, but it made me really test my own abilities. It made me dig in and have different conversations, look at a higher level. And I don't know. That was one of my early recognitions that who you choose to surround yourself with really, really matters. What you're talking about, what you're thinking about, and. So after college, I followed the crowd, went into New York City and thought, oh, the path to success is going to be Wall Street and finance. So I got my first job in Manhattan working in equity research. Did that for for a few months after graduation. And then I was living in the city when September 11th actually happened.
Oh, wow.
I was living and working in New York. And it was a massive wake-up call because I was sort of just head down, I remember going for 5-6 months throughout working there where I didn't even see sunlight. I was just in the office, the subway, in the apartment, and I was all about just learn as much as I can. Mm-hmm. But I just thought that success was just, make a bunch of money in finance. And that event caused me to look up and reflect. It caused me to think, what am I doing here? Do I see myself raising a family here? Do I see myself do I want to be doing what all my bosses were doing? All my family's back out in Las Vegas. So it just made me reflect at a pretty young age. And I chose to get closer to my family, move back to Las Vegas. I took a job opportunity back in Las Vegas in corporate finance with Caesars Entertainment. And that brought me home. And Once I got back, I was like, wow, I didn't realize what I had here. Growing up with, sunlight and easy access to mountains and parks and driving easily, and I could play tennis anytime I want without, costing an arm and a leg and planning it a week in advance.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, moved back for a job in corporate finance, and I got really frustrated in the corporate world in the first couple of years. Went, the same alum, Nick, who was a key in trajectory and introducing me to Princeton, was a real estate broker out here. And ultimately, I just got fed up with my 3% raise in my first year at work. And he said, what do you think about being a real estate agent? I said, I'll never be a real estate agent. I had this huge ego. And but then I started exploring working with investors and working with him. And that's what brought me into business. So
that's awesome. That's, so I knew that you went to Princeton and that you were in New York. I guess that's why I forgot that you actually lived here and then went out there and then came back. Yeah. But it's interesting. You point out, we had just talked about Who Not How, the book Who Not How. And right away, like, you have Nick, the Who, they kind of got you where you're going. So that was pretty cool. And I'll second that on the not knowing what you have until you go. And I don't know what it is, but even when I moved down here from the Seattle area, down to Las Vegas, we went back up there for a few years. And I remember driving across the 405 or the I-90, and I came up across right before you go into Seattle, and I saw this mountain range, and I was like, where did that come from? I don't even remember that. And then I look over and I see Mount Rainier, and I was driving around seeing this stuff, when the sun was out up there, obviously, because it gets a little overcast there. But then, that was blown away by, I could really see that all the time. I didn't even register in my brain. And then when I came back down here, same thing like you said, where most people think about Las Vegas. They're like, hey, what casino do you live in? What hotel do you live in? Like, no, all those homes that you flew over before you landed, I'm in one of those. But the great hiking out here. I just saw that there's snow in Mount Charleston today. Saw that I didn't see how many inches. I just saw it pop up and say that there's snow there. But you're right. Like, you go out and kind of come back, and now you registers with you. But yeah, so I can definitely relate with that. So obviously you went from finance, that was kind of your background, and then you got into real estate. And can you go a little bit more in depth on that? So Nick came back and just said, hey, what do you think about being a real estate agent?
Yeah.
You said, yeah, I'm not with it. What was it that finally triggered you? Because I have a similar story where somebody tried to get me in it the whole time. He kept saying you make six figures effortlessly, and I'm like, not listening, because that's how it was. And then he finally challenged me, and I was like, okay, I'm a competitive person. Yeah, I can get my license. And that's kind of what happened with me. So just kind of curious from your standpoint, what kind of put you in motion?
So I think the message that really attracted me, well, it was a mixed response of frustration with my, structured 3% raise, working on these pretty big projects. And actually looking back on that, I was super naive and thinking I knew way more than I knew, and I should have much more than I have. And actually the straw that sort of broke the back in the corporate world is I applied for, I was a 23-year-old college student, and I'm applying for a management position in managing a team in Chicago. And I was kind of heading down the path of, I'm going to go to business school and do that. And I didn't get that job, and I got all offended. And so best decision ever was not hiring me for that job, because it would have been a whole different path in life. But he said, let's start something together. Let's start a brokerage from the ground up. We'll be different. We started a firm called Bengal Realty and Investments, and we'll do business with investors, and we'll pool. So it's kind of appealing to the finance economic side. It's like, oh yeah, that sounds interesting. Yeah, I'll work on investment real estate, and I'll do business with investors. And so that's sort of what tipped it and got it in, was just the frustration and just get started. Plus, my dad had a huge influence on me getting into the business. My dad was actually an agent here in Las Vegas in the 80s and 90s for the last foreclosure crisis, and was actually an agent at the company that I'm at now. And, he basically told me when I graduated college, you're never going to have a problem finding something to do. Mm-hmm. You just have to figure out, how do you want to spend the minutes of your day? What do you really love doing? And, and at the time he's like, oh, just give it a shot, get your license and see where it goes. So I just kind of went in more out of frustration, but then just dug in and realized, oh, I really, really like the creativity of this. I really like the entrepreneurial nature of it. I like the fact that no two situations are exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so I liked the puzzle. I liked the problem solving. I'm an analytical, introvert by nature. And so I liked figuring out the puzzles.
No, I totally get that. So would you say that's what you like most about being in real estate, is that you get to be, I tell my son all the time, like, he's like, oh, I want a Lambo. He watches this YouTube video and he wants all this stuff. And then he says, like, well, we'll just get it. And I'm like, well, what do you want? You got to be a problem solver. If you really want to make money, you got to be a problem solver. So even like little things, when he's I can't find this. I'm like, no, how can you? Like, that's one thing I took away from Rich Dad Poor Dad was not I can't. How can I? So I try to implement that and instill that in him, because you're right. Like, if there's a problem that you can fix, then I mean your value goes up. So I can definitely understand why that would be, something that you're really passionate about.
Yeah, well, that something you said there, that is ultimately what brought me in. What I love most about being an agent early was the entrepreneurial nature and the problem solving. But I read a quote in the book Speed of Trust, that basically says any strength pushed to its extreme actually becomes a weakness. And that really resonated with me because I tapped my analytical strength. Oh, I'm a finance economics guy. I know all the answers. And so I was naturally doing a pretty good job analyzing situations and asking pretty good questions and getting things done. But I was taking it to its extreme and feeling like I have the responsibility to know all the answers, tell everybody what's best for them, tell everybody what they should do. And that didn't work out so well.
No, I know that's interesting that you said. That's a great quote. I wrote it down here. I mean, because it is like, once you get, I like to relate things to sports all the time, right? And you look at the beginning of the season. I was just listening to the Bill Simmons podcast this morning, and he's talking. 8 weeks ago, the Cowboys were in the Super Bowl, or like Patrick Mahomes at the beginning of the year, Super Bowl favorites, right? But eventually, his strength has now become his weakness. He's getting back on track, but the sidearm throw, the stuff that was just, oh my man, that's crazy. The more information and the more film people get on you, things start to change so that you can't do that anymore. So it's the exact same thing. So his strength became a weakness. Obviously he's reevaluating now, but that's a great point. And then I could see how you get so analytical that it would get like so sterile that it would be, because I mean we are in a business that is, yes, there's numbers and everything, but there's a lot of relationships going on as well. And I could see how becoming like statistical heavy could potentially turn some people off.
Yeah.
So that's crazy. Yeah, thanks for that quote. That's amazing. I love that. So as an agent, what would you say has been your proudest moment? Do you have, I'm sure you have a number of them, but do you have one that just kind of sticks out above the other ones that kind of made you feel like, man, I'm in the right spot. I'm doing the right stuff, doing the right things right now?
So I think the one that really stands out is relatively recent, but the reason that it stands out, I can reflect, is really at the core of what I love most about being an agent over the years, is when we achieve those outcomes that people just didn't think were possible, or somebody is feeling hopeless and stressed out, and we're able to show some hope and relieve stress, ultimately relieve suffering. That's one of the things that sort of transformed the direction I was heading in real estate. I was like, what do I really, really love about this? I said, I love reducing suffering. I mean, I went through some really tough times as an agent where I almost quit the business.
Yeah.
And, and I was fed up and overwhelmed and burnt out, and I almost quit. But I got motivated by that. So I think that recently the thing that really sticks out is we had someone reach out. This was about 2 months ago, and they were in the unfortunate situation of where they owned a property here in Las Vegas that had a good amount of equity, and they needed to get it sold. And they were facing losing a property in another market to foreclosure. For whatever reason, it got to that point in another market where they had about $300,000 to $400,000 worth of equity in that other home in the other market, and it was 7 days away from foreclosure.
Oh wow!
And they had a payoff deadline. and they couldn't. I guess they had explored postponing it, etc. Well, it didn't come to us until they had gone down the path of where they had a guaranteed cash offer in hand on the home in Vegas to get the cash needed to save the other property and save all that equity in a longtime family home in another market. But that buyer backed out. That buyer backed out and pushed the close date and said, we can't close on time. We can't close. We're pushing closing out 14 days. And I was like, well, and then I think ultimately they canceled it. And so that person reached out to us, and just leveraging a lot of the resources at fingertips and being a creative problem solver, we were actually able to get their home sold with an instant equity solution in 3 business days. Wow. Closed. So that was the other thing they were facing. They're like, well, I don't really have time to go through a whole diligence period, another escrow. Yeah. And so we basically took all of the relationships. You talk about the who, that whole situation would not have come together with some of the people that we work with in terms of the right title partners with the expertise to pull, demands and everything instantaneously to get it done. An equity partner to help us unlock that instant equity and give them the cash they needed to save the other property. A relationship in another market that could help them navigate the foreclosure over there. The marketing team that we work with here that even gave them the idea to reach out to us. The agent on the group that was able to sit with them in their living room and kind of just walk through and understand the emotion of the situation. And in 3 business days, we got them the equity out of this house without having to move on the home here. They're staying living there until we ultimately sell it. And they saved the property in the other market from foreclosure. So we saved, $300,000-$400,000 worth of equity within 3 business days, and are getting them to their ideal outcome, which, that's one of the things I'm most passionate about this business, is just helping people find clarity on what's most important, and then the creative solutions to get it.
Yeah, well, that's incredible. And in 3 days, and like you said, you're finding out not just, hey, we need to sell this, but finding out why. Why. What's the real motivation? Typically you ask, and it takes a while to get down to the why, right? The real reason why somebody's trying to sell something, or buy or whatever. But that one is it made me think, like, what was their motivation? You got me like enthralled in the story and thinking about, what was their motivation? They had a family home? Was it that they wanted the equity from the family home, or do they want to keep the family home? Because those are 2 different values, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I don't know, that's an incredible story, and I'm sure they're probably forever grateful for what you're able to do.
That's why I really believe no 2 situations are exactly the same. There's emotional factors, there's motivation factors, there's value factors, there's risk tolerance factors. So, but that one I was most proud of, because it really took a village of experts and people working together to make it happen. Because there's no way I'm doing that myself or without a process of understanding the other person.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned, so it's the Mullin group. So you mentioned a bunch of people working together, the agent that was in there on the couch. How many agents do you have in your group?
We have 16 associates.
16. Awesome.
16 associates that sell and 4 employees. Okay,
perfect. So with the, obviously the last, 18 months or so, crazy around here, right? We have, I've heard people refer to it as the California Exodus. Like, all these people are moving from all these states coming here, and other in, Texas and things like that as well. But we're getting an influx of people coming in here, and the market was crazy, right? People trying to get offers accepted. People decided to stop even looking anymore. So, was there anything that you and your team were doing as far as, getting those offers accepted or getting in front of people? I mean, was it just, hey, let's write the highest offer we can and try and have it be cash? I mean, because that was pretty much, I was on some of these Facebook groups, and they're just like, yeah, if you don't have cash, don't bother. No VAs, like none of this stuff. Like, if you don't have cash and you're not willing to waive all this contingency stuff, was there anything that you were doing differently that was getting your offers noticed?
So 2 words come to mind immediately when you ask that question. Discovery and customization. So, anybody can say, well, you just need to throw this term on your offer and it's going to get accepted. But to what seller and to what situation? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Until you really understand the factors at play going on the other side of transaction. I mean, as on the buying side of this, and not everything works all the time in all situations. Yeah. So the approach that we took was simply digging in as much as we could into the seller's situation and understanding through the listing agent what is most important to the seller. Are they concerned about deal risk more than net price? Do they need to live in the property for a little bit longer while they plan out their next move? Are they really concerned about, do they want certainty with a cash offer a little bit more than a financed offer? Until we really understand what's going on the other side and what's valuable to the other side, it's hard to give a buyer advice on how to adjust their offer to give it the most competitive until we know that stuff. So we just did our best to really understand what's important to sellers and customize and craft that into our buyer's offer strategies.
Yeah, I think that's incredible because it would be easy to assume that like first price is what people want. And I guess number two wouldn't even, I mean, I was going to say close date, but could vary as well. I mean, I have some clients that have a new construction that won't be built until June.
Yeah.
So what would a 10-day close do for them right now? Like that wouldn't be something they would be excited about, right? What are they going to do for the next 6 months? So you're right. Like being able to pick, understand what it is. What are the needs, not only from your clients, but you're going to offer something to somebody just thinking that, hey, we're going to give you a cash offer above list. And it's funny. A lot of people don't understand that some of these sellers that will take offers based not even close to what you're thinking on like financially. They may like a certain family that came in. They may like, they may choose it based on something completely random. And you're sitting there trying to throw, not you, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Trying to the general you trying to just sweeten the offer by offering more money. So I mean, I think that's brilliant and such an I shouldn't say easy, but I mean, such like, hey, what's your pain? Basically. Sorry, go ahead.
You're hearing you talk. It's getting, it's reminding me. I mean, I try to live by what's the principle or what's the value that we're focused on. And I try to live by principles over personalities. Everyone's got opinions and everybody's got different personalities and objectives and agendas, but how do I want to live? What's the principle I'm living by here, that process is going to work every single time, but we had a first-time home buyer that was struggling with an FHA loan for several months, and we found the right seller where that interview process mattered, and we beat out 35 other offers on a lower price because we met their needs on occupancy and risk management through the escrow. So
no, that's amazing. I'm getting kind of chills right now because we kind of talked about it earlier where we always want to sell what we can do before we even know what they are wanting. So I think that's, I mean, hearing you do that and like practically apply that, I shouldn't even call it a strategy. I mean, it in my opinion, it should be what we do anyways. Right. Yeah. So, I mean, to put that in an application and I'm beating out 35 other offers it's incredible. Like that if you won't pat yourself on the back, I'll pat you on the back for that. Cause that is an incredible thing to do, especially when it's not, I mean, that's problem solving. Right. That's not just throwing money at something and hoping that it's going to happen. So, I mean, you should be very, very proud of that for sure.
Do you mind me sharing one more thought? Because it just clicked. I mean, I hadn't thought about this, but just hearing you talk about it really clicked and something that helps guide my days because this business and industry has so much going on and it can be sheer chaos and it's highly emotionally charged situations and it's big stakes decisions. And I watched the TED Talk. I'll share it with you. I can't remember the name of the speaker, but it was "Run Your Business Like a Drug Addict" was the title of the TED Talk. And it boiled down to 3 simple principles. It said, be authentic, do uncomfortable work, and let go of the outcomes.
Wow.
And those were the 3 core messages of the talk. And that is what grounds me in these situations. It's just like, let's get real with what's most important with the humans here and do the uncomfortable things, uncomfortable conversations, challenge assumptions, and let go. I don't, better outcomes come when I run a process than when I focus on my own predictions and my own biases and my own opinions.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's great. Again, thank you for sharing that. I wrote that down as well. I'm gonna look for that TED Talk for sure. So obviously, so we talked about some of your proudest moments, things you really love about real estate. This is one of my favorite questions because I get some weird ones. But what is the craziest thing that you've had um, happen in a transaction, or anything that you've just seen in real estate that's been like kind of off the wall?
So, then I'll almost to a certain degree become a little bit numb to like nothing surprises me.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, but I think the thing that stands out is sort of I had never seen this drastic of a scenario, and it shocked me. It's like came to my mind as the craziest surprise. Was I was actually going out to meet an owner of a property that was they were selling their home themselves. They were a for sale by owner and marketing the property, and I saw a pretty big upside for them. I saw their list price. I saw what they were asking. I said, "Hey, can I come preview the property?" I had a couple clients that might be interested, but I wanted to learn more about their situation. What are they looking to accomplish? Everything I've just been talking about. And I set an appointment, went over to meet the owner, and I walked into the house and introduced myself. And he was all excited. There was a couple there at the dining room table, and he's like, "Oh, you're too late. I just sold the house." And the buyers were all proud that they got under contract because it was people fight. This was earlier this year and late. Yeah, this was actually late last year. People were fighting over homes. This was the 30, 40 offers on a
yeah,
property time, and it wasn't exposed to the market. It was, it was on, I think it was on Zillow. But these home buyers were sitting in the living room just super excited. Literally, they were signing the contract. And I just said, "Oh, congrats." I kind of let them finish their conversation. I talked to the owner aside, and I said, "Congratulations. What are the terms? How'd it go?" And he said, "Oh, they paid my asking price, 210 was what he's asking." I was walking over with the thought process of exposing it to the market at 260 and feeling like that could have been maybe even, pushed up based on market dynamics at the time. So I was just shocked, quite frankly, that, the owner left $50,000 potentially on the table um, by making that assumption. And I don't know, it's not every single situation is going to be exactly the same.
yeah.
Sometimes it can be done well, but back to the what's most important to you, what outcome do you want, and
Yeah, no,
maybe.
definitely. I mean, that's stepping over dollars to pick up dimes. Where
Yeah,
you just phrase it a little bit differently and say it's not a commission, it's a service fee,
yeah,
right? And then people are okay with it all of a sudden.
yeah. Well, again, what's important to the individual. Maybe
Yeah, yeah.
maybe
Maybe
what was
him
important
getting it
was the
sold himself.
accomplishment. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You're right. Maybe that's what it was.
Which
But
is fine. I don't
yeah,
view my
wow.
job as to tell people what they should do. I just view my job as our job is to help them find clarity
Yeah.
and on what's most important, and provide options for them to choose. So,
Yeah. No, okay. Well, so with that being said, what is something every buyer or seller should know, in your market here in Las Vegas?
I think that the most important thing I believe people should know is that not every single agent gets the same results. You know what I mean?
Mm,
I think that sometimes, not all the times, a lot of people understand that, but I think that my wish was that people really could realize that experience matters and process matters. And I
mm,
think one of the things I believe that I think everybody in the market should know is what really drives the final sales price you get. I mean, how many times well, what do you think my house is worth? And I respond, well, it's not my job to tell you what your house is worth. My job is to help you get clarity on what's most important to you in the process, identify your ideal outcome, and make sure we achieve that, and get you the most the market will bear if that's what's important to you. But I think what I wish people really understood is what really drives the final outcome of a transaction from a seller side or a buyer side. On the seller side, what really drives the final sales price? I believe it's pricing strategy, marketing process, marketing approach, and negotiation process. And all the factors at play that go into making those decisions ultimately is what drives the final net cash you take home, not what do you think my house is worth?
yeah.
So
Okay. Yeah. No, totally get that. Do you have, maybe two or three, actionable items that buyers and sellers can do when they are actually looking for an agent?
So yes, um, I believe that I believe every seller should talk to several agents and should interview multiple agents because, like I just said, I believe that not everybody's a good fit for everybody, and you focus on the who's right for you, who's right for your objectives, who's right for your outcomes, what's most important to you in the process. And I think when you are interviewing agents, if it was me giving someone advice, I said, what kind of questions are they asking you?
Yeah.
They show up. Are they showing up and really being curious and asking you a lot of questions about your situation and trying to understand your unique risk tolerances and your unique goals and your fears and where you're trying to go next? Or are they doing what we talked about a little bit earlier? Are they walking in like you? How'd you feel if you walked into the doctor's office and they said, "Hey, welcome. Here, take 2 pills. Here's your issue, and this is the path. This is the path we're going." This is what I'm gonna do to sell your home. This is what your house is worth, and here's what's next. Here's comps, versus taking some time to really understand the situation first. So I'd encourage them to pay attention to the questions that are being asked by the agent, not just ask the agent questions. I view our job as not just answer the questions. This is one of the things I changed. I don't think our job is just answer the questions. I think our job is to question the answers and help people get clear. So, and I think maybe, pay attention to who can articulate a clear process. If they say, I'm going to get you the most the market will bear, what's your specific process and methodology for doing that?
Yeah.
And just make sure that can be articulated and show them. So,
yeah, absolutely. No, I love it. Definitely, asking, understanding what they want that's kind of been the undertone of the show here. Like that, figuring out what people actually want before you start just vomiting all these things on them. And I think that's kind of what happens in some of these, consumers get really confused on what's out there because of all of that without people like actually getting to know them. So Matthew, here we are with the rapid fire round. Just some quick questions for you to try and get some more clarity for the listeners out there. So number 1, what is one piece of technology that you just couldn't do without and you can't say MLS?
Yeah, for me, it's Evernote. No doubt. It's cloud-based, organized notes, make sure that I can Evernote. That's all I got to say about it. It's
awesome. And that's just basically a note-taking app that you can use.
Online web-based note-taking app. I have access to it on my laptop, my iPad, my phone. It's organized by books and topics and ideas and people, and I can really make sure that I'm, grabbing conversations, building relationships with it. And it's my one place for all the knowledge.
Awesome. Love it. What is the best book you've ever read and why?
Speed of Trust. No doubt, The Speed of Trust, because that book changed my life. It says it's the one thing that changes everything. And if you, for me, is reflecting on what really drives relationships, both at home and at work, it's trust levels. And that book changed my life. It broke down the framework into separating people from behavior, simple behaviors that can be changed. And it's not the person I don't trust, it's just a behavior. So it helped me be better and pay attention to my own behaviors and made life better at home and at work.
Awesome. All right. What is the best business advice you've ever received?
The best business advice I ever got was really 4 things. Be yourself. Just be yourself. That's where you come out strongest. I spent too long trying to be other people and it just doesn't come off well and it didn't go well and my effectiveness dropped. Questions attract and statements repel, which is we talked a lot about. Wow. And it's just a core principle. Questions attract and statements repel. Fail fast and fail often. Failure is required for success. That was a mindset shift I had. And really just surround yourself with the best of what you want to get better at.
Awesome. So, imagine you woke up tomorrow morning in a brand new world, identical to Earth, but you knew no one. You still have all the experience and technology you currently have, food and shelter is taken care of. All you have is a laptop and $500. What would you do to resurrect your real estate career in the next 7 days?
Throw some signs out into a neighborhood for an open house and start having conversations with people and getting to know people. Invite neighbors, meet buyers, really try to understand what people are looking for, and essentially work hard for that seller. Show the neighborhood I'm working hard for that seller. I'm trying to drive traffic and showings to their property, and just have really good, effective conversation of learning what people want and then give it to them.
All right. And the last one, you've already given us a few of these, but give us a quote that has guided you in your life.
2 things really come to mind. May your results speak louder than your opinions. Keeps me humble, keeps me focused, keeps me, what are the results of this and how does it really matter? May your results speak louder than your opinions. And I learned from one of my coaches, I ask myself 3 questions at any time I'm really in a tough situation. And it's, who are you? What do you want? And what price are you willing to pay? And those 3 questions really help guide me every single day in my decision-making process. Who am I? What do I want? What are the prices I'm willing to pay for this? Because it's different for every person. So
awesome. Well, thank you. That was the speed round. I really appreciate having you on the show for sure. Like, this is, it's been a long time coming. We've been trying to schedule this for a few months now, but very happy to have you on. How can people get in contact with you? They want to buy, sell, maybe, join your team. What's the best way people can, get in contact with you?
Oh, themullingroup.com. Just go to www.themullingroup.com or just text me direct, 702-326-5714.
Awesome. Matthew, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and I can't wait to continue our conversations offline.
Likewise.
All right. Have a great one. Thank you for listening to the Authentic Agent Resource Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe. Today's episode was brought to you by the Semi-Retired Real Estate Agent. To get your free copy, go to thesemiretiredagent.com or simply scan the QR code if you're watching this video.